Hey, this is Billy with the Wild Way podcast. We are so excited for 2021. We believe that this is going to be a great year of purpose where every person can walk in their eternal purpose. And so we are excited for what's coming up. We would like you, if you've enjoyed this content, to go on YouTube and subscribe, to leave us a review wherever you're listening, to share with a friend, leave a comment, and check us on social media wherever you're at. We got some big announcements coming up, some exciting things for this next year, and we really believe in this message, and we believe that you do too, and we want to get it out there to other people. So like, comment, share, subscribe wherever you're at, and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of The Wild Way. We back. We want to inspire every man to live with eternal purpose every day because we believe that if you find your why, you'll find your way. And we have our awesome friend, Andrew, in here with us today.
Honey Drew Boo's return.
Thank you.
Check out our previous episode where we interviewed him, heard his story. Our buddy Pete, who would normally be here for a roundtable, he's out because he just had a baby. So congratulations, Pete. So excited for you, man. He's fulfilling his purpose, you know?
He is.
He's out here procreating.
What purpose is that?
That's making babies, bro. He's multiplying. Go ahead, Pete. Lead the way. Be fruitful, man. We talked episode number 1.
Episode 1.
Yeah. that's the foundation, right, Andrew?
Throwback, man. I remember watching the episode. I was laughing my head off. That's a great episode. If you haven't watched already, go back and watch the first episode of this podcast. It's amazing.
Yeah. We're getting canceled on episode number 1, so go check it out. But today we're going to be talking about what does it mean to be a creative. So you two guys in particular are more the traditional creatives, very artistic. And so we're going to go into 3 different areas that it means to be a creative. What does that mean in principle and then in specific? First is going to be our identity. Second is going to be what inspires us, inspiration. And third is going to be impact. What are we trying to do and accomplish with that? And so, Andrew, when we were going through an interview, when we interviewed you, you had a great comment about, where does creativity spawn from? And so can you just kind of lay it out for us?
Sure. Yeah. And, as I previously said in the interview that I conducted, and I'm just going to reiterate pretty.
We're allowed to laugh at you now. Yeah. You conducted it. You're the orchestra conductor. Yeah.
I guess
we're going to interject now.
As a participant of the interview. Yeah. Sorry for starting off so formal.
As the interviewee.
As the interviewee, right. I was just kind of talking about the essence of creativity and how the Bible seems to declare that is God originated. Genesis talks very clearly about how God made mankind in his image, which we can take to mean that God made humans as a sort of mini version of him when it comes to creativity, not in terms of God power, but in terms of our functionality. So God is someone that effortlessly creates the universe, people, nature, everything that you see. And so man was designed to be the exact same way, where we create clothing, the very sofa that we're sitting on, podcast.
Buildings.
So buildings at a micro level, we do what God did on a macro level, essentially. That's what the Bible means when it says that God made man in his image.
So you could say that we're created to create.
Exactly. And again, as I explained before, it doesn't necessarily mean create in terms of traditional art. It means create in terms of family, create in terms of relationships, create in terms of ideas. Create is a very broad term, but it explains and originates everything around us. Everything around us is a result of creation. Yeah,
I love that. It's like bringing something novel or new into the world through our personhood.
Precisely, man. Precisely.
It's so good, man. And for me, I'm not a super creative person. Despite the jacket, we got to acknowledge this fly piece of fuzzy equipment we got going on.
It's a nice jacket, man. Where'd you get that?
Yeah. I got it from a buddy who thinks he knows what he's doing.
So
I had to show him how to really wear this thing.
Oh, okay.
And
must be a good guy.
But like you guys, you draw, you animate, and Charles, you sing. You try to. You do a good job.
Oh snap!
Roasting me.
Bro, too soon. And so I'm not that guy.
I wasn't ready.
I'm not that guy. I can't sing. I can't draw. But is there still a place for someone like me to be creative?
I think back to what you said. We are created to create. Just because you may not be able to draw, you may not be able to sing or whatever, or do something that traditionally is looked at as being artistic. Like you just said, Pete, he just had a baby. That's creating. Right. You went to school to be an engineer, so when you design, or somebody who's an architect, that's creating. Like everything that is surrounding us right now was created by someone.
Yeah.
So whether you're a thinker, some people come up with ideas, and I don't know if I'm about to spoil your surprise, but eventually in the future, you're going to have a book.
Yeah.
So you are a creator. Like, your thoughts are leading you to write them down and to share them with people. So, man, there are just so many ways that as humans that we can create that are outside of the traditional sense of art,
Yeah. And Andrew, you had an awesome story that you shared about like a minister, pastor, like evangelist that was just so cool. Could you give us that in like the shorthand version and the takeaway?
Yeah. So I went to go see Robert Madu probably close to like 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And he gave a message about how people are essentially dirt. Again, I'm drawing from Genesis. And he mentioned how God crafted mankind out of the ground, out of earth, essentially dirt. And so we, in essence, are all walking dirt, but we have a treasure. We have a treasure buried inside the dirt, as is akin to a lot of stories about pirates and buried treasure. So basically, everybody has a treasure inside them. Everybody has a gift. And as I outlined, it's not necessarily a traditional thing where like, oh, you're really good at cooking, or oh, you're really good at rapping, or stuff like that. It has nothing to do with that. It's more of everybody has a specialty and something that they've been given by God to do, whether that be listening to somebody, or you're really good at greeting people when you come to church. So everybody has a gift within their dirt, essentially.
I love that.
Love it.
What does it say in Corinthians? That we have this treasure hidden in jars of clay. Right. So we're fragile. We are dirt, but God has deposited in us something that's unique, really himself, right, through his spirit. But we all have that identity that God has imparted to us. And I think that's so important for each one of us to realize, because, I mean, whenever you go to create, this has been my experience, when I have an idea or I want to make something, I get insecure about it. I get insecure about how other people think about it. I get insecure about, what if it's not good enough? What if I try and I fail? Or, oh, somebody else did it better than me, but maybe I can apply it in a way that they hadn't seen, or to a group of people that have not yet received it. So I think that for me, it's so important to remember that, God has put me here to bring something unique from who I am to a group of people who have not yet received it.
Yeah, it behooves you, man. You are behooved to do that. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
So you got to think about it that way. It's a necessity. It's a way of life.
Yeah, we almost have an obligation.
100%.
Right? Like you
100%.
rob God, you rob yourself, and you rob your neighbor.
Imagine leaving this world, and you meet God, and God's like, I gave you this gift. What did you do with it?
You didn't use it.
But imagine getting that question, like, I gave you this gift, and I gave you this time. What did you do with both? And then you don't know how to answer the question.
It's the parable of the talent.
It's exactly, that exactly happens.
Right.
Yeah.
What does he say? What's his excuse?
Oh, he was afraid, basically.
I was
and he hid
afraid.
it.
Yeah.
Right? I think so many of us, like, have you guys encountered that? I've been afraid.
Sure.
When I go to, like, put something out there, well, who am I? What if I face this criticism?
Yeah, because what you make is
I
a
think I have.
No. What were you going to say?
No, go. No, I was going to say, for me, I think I mentioned this before in a previous episode, but for me, it's not so much what other people are going to think about what I do. It's what I think about it. So bad or good, I hold my opinion. I hold my opinion to be like the top.
Yeah.
So if you love it and I hate it and I made it, it's like,
You're a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm like, it doesn't matter. I don't like it. So
Totally.
for me, it's my own thoughts, but it's not necessarily fear for me.
Yeah.
I got
What about you, Andrew?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, on a personal level, not even an artistic level, everybody's their own worst critic. So, of course, you're going to be more critical of what you make than other people. But, Billy, I mean, I second what you're expressing, which is when you put something out, it feels like it's an extension of you.
Yeah.
So then when that thing gets criticized, it's almost like you got criticized. Because people get to judge, like, oh, this is how much effort this person put into because of A, B, C, D. And so it's hard to make yourself vulnerable. But I think the best art comes from when you're vulnerable. Like, I have a really good friend who's an amazing rapper, and he does a lot of rap songs about like his emotions and how he's feeling in his mental state. And he's like, man, like sometimes when I do this, like I'm afraid to spit like this because I don't want people to like really get into my head.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's amazing. Like the stuff that I think your best work comes from when you're being honest.
I was gonna say some of the best art comes out of that, like that vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Like look at your favorites. I don't know why I'm thinking of Mary J. Blige right now, but when she first came out, like a lot of her songs were just about heartache and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And those are her best songs.
Oh man, I remember hearing on the radio one time, like I think it was like Paramore, the lead singer of that. Like she just went through a breakthrough.
I love her
and
so much.
she just went through a breakup, and they're like, my first thought was, oh, this next album's gonna be great.
Use it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so angsty.
So, yeah.
Every Taylor Swift song basically ever.
And that's another.
She goes through breakups just to make number one hits.
Yes, that's the only reason she gets to the relationship. I need an album.
Beautiful thing about art, man. Exactly what you said is that it's also an outlet for negative emotions. Whereas you could put that energy towards something that's unproductive. Utilizing it in a piece of art or creative expression helps other people come to terms with their emotions. You know, so it helps bring a deeper understanding to yourself and to others who are going to something similar.
And I think we've all seen, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, of like somebody who has processed their negative emotions and produces something beautiful out of it. Right? Like it's skillful. It's not just like trashy. You know, we can all tell when somebody's like creating out of an unhealthy space. Yeah. You know, and maybe that's what they need. They need that. But I always find that sometimes I'm like, yo, do that in private. Like wait, process that in your heart, get your soul ready, figure out what your lesson is, and then bring something better, more well-formed to the public square. Like a lot of times.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh yeah. Push back on me, Charles. Disagree.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, because sometimes just as somebody who creates, like you need, like sometimes the only way to get those, to work through the situation is to make something out of it. Totally. So the idea,
but you don't have to release every song.
You don't have to release everything. Not everything is meant to be ingested, but you got a point.
Yeah, I think.
But are they wrong? Sorry, but are they wrong for putting it out? If this is an emotion that I'm working through,
case by case basis. But it's like the difference between your journal and what you say out loud.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, everybody needs a space to vent that.
Yeah.
To get it out. Also, I'm not saying repress it, but I don't want to skip ahead, but that's kind of like going towards impact.
Totally.
Like when you release something, shouldn't you be thinking about how this is going to be consumed by somebody else?
Yeah. Like releasing a page from your diary, I mean, I guess that could have some sort of artistic value, but it's like, what's the intention behind it, you know? But I agree with what both of you guys are saying. I think that you should create as an outlet for emotion, but then you should be like, why do I want other people to see this? And if you don't have an answer, well, I don't know if you should put it out, you know?
That's a good point.
But I agree with what both of you guys are saying.
Yeah. I guess my assumption is that things you put out should be put out there to bless people.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally.
Right? And that can, I'm not to say that there has to be like some, you know, CCM or like Christian contemporary music where it's like really polished and like, yeah, we're all smiles. No, like you can put out really raw things.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this, like the music that has impacted us as teenagers was the angry music, right? It was capturing that teenage angst, but it gave a voice to it so that you could express it and get it out.
Yeah.
But that's totally different than...
Random side note.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my favorite songs of Disney movies was the villain songs.
Yeah.
So which one?
Oh, all of them. Just
every villain.
I don't know.
Bro, you want to know a good villain song?
I love that. Love that guy. What?
A good villain song, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hellfire.
So Andrew.
Judge Claude Frollo is explaining the reason why he's doing what he's doing. And like, usually in villain songs, you're like, oh, you're still wrong. But in this one, you're so conflicted. You're like, dude, what? Like, this guy is so complex. Like, it really isn't just black and white, man. So I agree with you.
Such a good song.
I definitely agree with you. Yeah, it's interesting. I believe that art has the ability to show us perspectives from others. You know, and that's like a really cool thing. So art is something that can definitely transport us into someone else's point of view to help us better understand them and also the world around us.
And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah.
Right? And because it reaches us at such a deeper level than just like propositional truth. Like, hey, I'm Billy and I see the world in this way. Yeah. Like, no, I can capture that. And we were talking about like movie quotes and why I like so many movie quotes. It's because it's captured this person, this moment, this persona. And, you know, when you see good art, you take it into your identity. Yeah. It shapes you. Right. And that's the beauty. And that's why I was thinking of like, you know, we should put things out into the world that are meant to help people or to express things that are good, that are beautiful and true. Yeah. And that can be difficult truths. That can be, you know, we've been through a lot of valleys, but we found the beauty in it.
Think about the movie 300, man. Like, they all die in the end. Yeah, but if that isn't a motivational movie, like one that inspires you, I don't know what is.
Like this guy's favorite movie.
Bro, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Although the original 300 is Gideon, so don't get me started.
The biblical 300. Yeah. That's cool. No, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Charles, I still don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I understand what you're saying. The things that you put out should be meant to help someone or bless someone. I get it. But again, I'm still stuck on this. What if somebody needs to work through an emotion in their regular life? Somebody makes a song and they're in a place that they're like, I don't know, pissed off about a breakup or something. And that song helps somebody get through that emotion.
Yeah.
That's different because you have, to me, there's a lot of sad songs in the Bible.
There are.
Right? Songs, like 1/3 of the songs are laments.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a whole book of that. So
Lamentations.
I'm not saying it's got to be just hunky-dory positive, but it's polished.
Yeah.
It has, what we were talking about earlier, of like this, the message is clear. It's not just like this rage fest.
Yeah. What if you hated your job and so you drew a picture of like you blowing up your job? Like, what does that do?
That's definitely
what does that
happened
do? Yeah, besides incriminating you.
Well, before or after you go to jail.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, why would you release something like that? I understand why you made it because you really hate your job and you're artistically talented, so you put it into an outlet.
Funny enough, there's a movie about that, Office
really?
Space.
He draws a picture.
Never seen
No,
that
the whole
movie.
movie ends with him blowing up.
Oh,
the
I
office.
do know that. I do know that. Yeah.
Oh,
Great
God.
movie.
I need to
We're
watch
spoiling
it.
all these
Spoiler
movies.
alert, yeah.
I just said that
If you
everyone died
haven't
in
seen Office
300.
Space by now, yeah.
Yeah, these movies have been out for
That's
a
on
little
you.
bit. So yeah. Also, 300 is a historical event, so I spoiled it, but it's historical. But yeah, totally, man. I feel like there would be no tact in releasing something like that. Like it would only be a negative consequence for you, and then people who see it, they'd be like, "You are slightly disturbed."
Psycho.
Yeah, but you're not. Like
Yeah.
you didn't intend to blow up your job. You just did it as an artistic expression.
But we all need songs to get in our feelings about.
Or or anything to get through your feelings, like whether it be a work of art, painting, song, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there's something that's said about, you can listen to something for you as a musician and say, oh, this person still needs to work through that. Or, wow, this person has so artfully captured sorrow that it's helping me to process my sorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think
So
that's great.
give us an example of what you mean by somebody. I guess you just did with the blowing up.
The context is what I'm getting at. Context is important in understanding art.
Yeah.
It's like you can have a scene where somebody gets murdered, but what is that painting in the bigger picture? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is that trying to show later on in the movie, right? Or later on in the book?
I don't know. Tell us why Grand Theft Auto was a thing.
Grand Theft Auto is really interesting. I think you're gonna get me like super philosophical.
It's
philosophical about Grand Theft Auto.
Dude, my wheels are turning. It's an expression of people's vices.
Oh yeah,
right?
sure.
It's was it Jung calls your shadow self, right? Like that's too deep in the psychology maybe, but like where the things that you wouldn't dare in real life but you can do.
Now I have an
And
outlet for it.
that's why so much of entertainment exists and is so raunchy. Is because you wouldn't dare say those things.
Yeah.
You wouldn't dare actually do it in real life, but somebody else has. That's why people watch, like, it's a little dated now, but the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
It's like so ratchet, but it's
Or like we were just talking about comedians.
yeah, some comedians, right? You wouldn't dare say these things to people in real life,
Yeah.
but they're, you identify with it at some level.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting study that a lot of media students will do, which is the Bobo doll study, where they wanted to see if there's a correlation between children watching violence and replicating it. And so what they found is that children who don't understand the difference between reality and what they're seeing almost always replicate that violence. But as you get older and you can develop the distinction between, okay, this is something I see on TV and this is my reality, there is no correlation. So it's all about presenting something in context, right? And understanding what the ramifications of that is. That's why, like, Grand Theft Auto, there's all this press about it and how it was the degradation of society and like here's this crime simulation. But if those people actually played the game, they would. I'm not saying that Grand Theft Auto is redeeming. Like that's up to you
Andrew's
Not the way I
argument for
play it.
Grand
yeah,
Theft Auto.
it's up to you to make that judgment call as to what you will play and what your kids will play.
Yeah.
But there's a story to that game. Like somebody wrote a story and made it. That story has a moral in it. Like it has a message in it. And it's a story about a criminal and the life of that criminal and what comes with that life. So it definitely is showing a reality, right? And so I think to fully understand a piece of art, you have to immerse yourself in the context of it and say, okay, what did the person who created this intend me to take away from the experience?
That's fair, because a lot of people will write off certain things because they don't get it.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
But I think once you understand the context, you can probably have a more informed opinion.
A lot of stuff suffers that, man. Like, it's a lot of it is just somebody will see a scene out of context and be like, wow, there's something that's circulating right now that has this scene in it. And it's, but that scene was part of something bigger. And I'm not trying to justify violence and content or anything like that. I'm trying to say that storytellers will take us to places that are very real. Yeah. And I think demonstrating that reality is different for everybody. So if something offends you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's inappropriate, but it can be offensive. So yeah, that's a whole nother discussion for sure.
That reality itself is offensive. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a lot, and I find that a lot, is that people are not willing to think to the logical conclusion of things.
Right.
Like you'd rather be ignorant than be exposed to reality. But we're getting a little off track.
We're off topic, completely.
But that's the great thing about podcasts. We can do what we want.
Yeah,
but let's bring it back to inspiration. So we got identity. We're going to create out of our identity that who we see ourselves is how we will express ourselves, and we can take in somebody else's identity to ourselves when we see their creative work.
Right.
So what about inspiration? What inspires you guys to create?
Everything, man. Everything. To be honest, for me at least, is just living life and just everything that comes along with life, real life scenarios. It's funny, when I was in college, I went to school for music business, and I had like this songwriting class. When I was just learning how to write songs, I could come up with like stories and just write about nothing. But a part of me, like I literally said this to myself, I feel like I need to experience everything before I'm able to write about it. And I feel like that was the worst thing I could have ever said out of my mouth.
God's like, oh, you want experience? Here you go.
Because then all hell started breaking loose. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Careful what you wish for.
You wanted to experience it, right?
Careful
now go talk about it. So that's, for me, I have to live life. I have to feel something before. Of course, I can fake a story, but my heart's not going to be in it if I just write about anything. Yeah, that's for me.
So it comes from your experiences.
Yeah.
Very connected to identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I'd say, I have a lot of artist friends, and I have a lot of artist friends that go, I'm in a real creative block right now, a writer's block, and my advice to them, which is not even my original advice, it's just advice I've heard, is go and watch the things or read the things or listen to the things that inspire you. So for me, a lot of my creative inspiration comes from my favorite creators and just really looking at what they do.
Yeah.
Like, man, if you're a filmmaker and you're having a hard time writing a screenplay or having a hard time framing a shot, I'm not saying copy, but I'm saying go watch something that you really love and then see if that doesn't give you the passion and go back to work, man. So,
So what about you in particular?
Like particular inspirations?
Yeah.
So primarily, I guess my main creative expression is drawing. And I'll go read some comics by my favorite artist. Akira Toriyama is definitely one of them. He's the author of and illustrator of Dr. Slump and, of course, Dragon Ball. I'll go read a comic by Ichiro Oda. Right now, he's the author and illustrator of the biggest comic book in history, which is One Piece. So I'll go and like read and watch a lot of my favorite anime and cartoons and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool.
It's the same also. Like apart from living life, a lot of things that I love. For some reason, we talk about this. I'm hugely inspired by the 80s.
Yeah.
Just the 80s, period.
Man, the 80s.
Everything. I just love it so
What is
much.
it about scrunchies that inspires you?
Oh, God, it's jazzercise. I just love
It's the jazzercise for me.
Please stop it. I hate that. Oh, God. I hate that saying. You know this.
Yeah.
That's funny.
For me, I think, oddly enough, it's history.
Cool.
Like, once I'm exposed to new ideas or new possibilities, for me, I love the things that shatter my current understanding, right? And just open up new ways of thinking, new possibilities, new perspectives. Because I'm not a creative in the sense that you guys are, but in the spaces that I am, and I'm going to be directly working with people or imagining new possibilities and trying to either myself go make it happen or inspire others to go make it happen. So for me, what's really important is to have a really big vision, and I have to be pumped full of vision all the time. And so my lowest moments is when I forget what I'm here to do. Yeah, man. Right? Is when I forget.
Same.
When I lose vision, like, okay, this like change is possible. And so yeah, I've constantly, that's why, you guys know me, I read a lot, I listen to a lot of things. It's because it's like sharpening me. I'm being chiseled away and I'm like, oh, I never even knew this was possible. Like a recent one that just blew my mind. You know, guys know Jackie Hill Perry and spoken word. That when I first started listening to spoken words, I'm like, this is beautiful. Like it just dropped my jaw. I'm like, and I've actually written poems since then, like to a meter.
Oh, now you gotta share them.
Oh no, they're love poems, bro. I wrote them to my wife, or
okay.
my
Never mind.
girlfriend,
I take it
fiance
back.
at the time, right? Nothing inappropriate, but like, you know,
These poems are probably smooth, bro.
so they're
They're probably.
let me tell you, that's
mad
why she's my wife. Bro.
You see the ring?
Oh man, I'm just because you know I'm pretty good with words.
Yeah, man.
So
He's got the wordplay down.
man, but I just love that. It just burst a category for me.
Yeah.
I was just exposed. So
Yeah.
I love that.
That's another thing. I think that great art inspires other artists.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You'd be hard pressed to find someone that you admire artistically that doesn't have some muse or inspiration of their own. That's also an artist.
Yeah.
Like everyone started that way. So
Yeah.
the example I gave of Akira Toriyama, he was super inspired by Disney. Like that was one of his biggest inspirations. You know?
Yeah. So how are you inspired by God?
Bro, that's a whole
You wanna go?
sermon. How am I inspired by God? I don't know how to answer that question. I feel like, to be honest, I don't know what you think about this, but things that inspire me from God is literally everything that He created. I get so hugely impacted by just looking and being in and around creation.
Yeah.
Like when you just walk outside and you just look at a sunset, and like it's the sunset mixed with animals chirping, mixed with the wind, like the feeling that you have on your skin. Like when you sit here, and at least for me, I think about everything that I'm experiencing, something that He created. Like it just, I don't know, man. That inspires me. I don't know what else to say about it. Just, man, I say this a lot. Think about, God is so dope. He created things that we will never see, or that we will have to like search really, really deeply to see. In order, like think about cells before like X-rays or all these things were invented, or bones. Like, I don't know. He created all this stuff that nobody knew about, and it took us years to discover. Or like the bottom of the ocean, which we still don't know a lot about. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. There's a really great movie that I'm sure a lot of Christian people have watched, The Prince of Egypt. And
I love that.
there's a song, Your Life Through Heaven's Eyes. And the man who's singing the song to Moses says, you're, I think, a stitch in the pattern of the grand design. Remember that line?
Go ahead, sing it for us.
Dude, I wish I could, man. It's a beautiful song. But and what's cool is that song has definitely gained a lot of popularity with the secular community. It's almost like that message is universally understood. And I would have to agree with you, Charles, that I'm inspired by God by thinking about the multifaceted artwork that is reality. I guess as an illustrator, it's more apparent than other pieces of artistic expression. You know that details are everything. And we read the Bible and we see the nature of God, and we understand that God is all about the details. All about these little things that, just like you said, go unnoticed. But when you look at it, create a wonderful, vivid image. But you can never pinpoint those details. You know, those are just something that come instinctually with your artist's mind, and that's definitely what God has made. You know, you slice open anything from a leaf to a sea turtle to a rock, and then you understand, like, wow, man, the origins of this are definitely complex.
Isn't that the mark of a master, though? Is that they have an eye for details that you can't even perceive?
It freaks me out, man. I'm not gonna lie.
crazy.
Like, it freaks me out.
Yeah.
It freaks me out, dude.
I just remember as a kid, I had a creek at the corner of my block, and I would just go down there and play. And I mean, like, you know, sometimes you just look at the dirt, and you just, like, something like hands gets me. I can just sit here and crinkle my hand and look at all the folds of it, and look how my hands move so smoothly. And I'm like, you know, as like having a mechanical engineering degree, I look at this, I'm like, no one could ever make this.
It's so intentional.
And we do. We try to replicate.
It's so intentional.
And it's like there's a moment of transcendent beauty, and I think that's the thing about art when it's done well, or creativity, whether it's a building as an architect, or you know, something you've drawn, or something that you've sung, or maybe just think about someone who's come through in some historical sense in a big way, like a William Wallace. We see that, and we see something transcendent in what they've made. They've made a moment. They've made some art. And I think it's like, what does it C.S. Lewis say? That it's not only that I see the sun that I believe in it, but because of the sun I see everything else.
Right.
It's like the rays of light.
Yeah, man.
So that's God. Like it's not just that God exists that I believe in him, but because of God I believe in all these other things.
Dude.
I can see these other things. So many times the signals of transcendence, we just trace them back up to God. And it's like, man, when you see something really beautiful, you have a moment of worship.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I love that. It leads you to worship.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I know that for me to be 100, when I can just sit down and just, I hate that I'm using this word, ponder about things that God has created.
Well,
it literally just leads you to worship. Like, what else can you do?
Your soul just sings at how beautiful it is.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's Psalms 139 where it says, "You knitted me in my mother's womb." Deep, bro.
Yeah.
You knitted me in my mother's womb, and then it goes on to say, "That is why I praise you, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Keyword being made. You know? And very intense.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think we can get any better inspiration than just nature itself.
Yeah, man. Like, not to harp on it too much, but think about if you had never seen a beach before, and so you walk onto the beach and your eyes are locked on the water, and you're like, "Wow, open water," and then you look down, and what you thought was just solid ground is actually millions and billions of tiny little pieces
of rock
that make up a whole, that make up an entirety. Yeah. That's the key right there. It's like these millions and billions of tiny pieces aren't impressive on their own, but when they're all together, they make the ground that I stand on. Think about how an alien's mind would be blown by that, or somebody who would never step foot on a beach.
I've seen videos of that. Someone that grew up in the Midwest, they've never seen the ocean before, and they're like older, 60s, 70s. It's like somebody's grandpa, and they take them to go see the ocean, and they are drawn to tears.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just blown away. Or like someone who's never seen color, and they put on those glasses for the first time, and they're so overwhelmed. It's just like they take them off.
Dude,
like I can't.
Or like, I'm thinking of a video of a lady who was deaf.
Yes.
She heard for the first time.
The first time,
Like,
she started crying, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing more beautiful than that. Even astronauts, they say when they get up there and they actually look at the Earth, not from a picture on a computer screen, but like actually seeing the whole thing in person. It's this moment, man, where you realize I'm part of an art project. Like essentially, that's what it is.
Art.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, man. It's really cool.
This in Ephesians it
Part
talks
of an art
about
project.
No, it is
love
actually in Ephesians it talks about how we are God's handiwork. It's like a poem. It's poema in Greek. So we are His poem.
Dude, so sick.
So God has written our lives out as a poem meant to be beautiful.
So sick.
And so that's where it's just we see through and through and through. We're created to create.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
You know, it trips me out sometimes. Not to get too deep into this, because I could.
We're already in the deep water. We're already there.
I could dive. You feel me?
Dive.
Get wild.
When I think about
Get wild.
everything that we know, everything that we know to be right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, He could literally wipe everything away and recreate a whole new world and never use the same thing that was created in the original.
For sure.
I'm like, my mind,
billion times over.
My mind can't even comprehend like how you could I can't even think about it.
That sounds like you're about to start breaking out worship.
That's
about to start running. Clear a path for this guy.
Come on, somebody.
Come on, somebody.
full circle. Great.
Oh man, I love it.
That's awesome, man. That's a cool thought.
Well, let's go then to impact.
Sure.
You know, like the impact that we should have as people that are called to create, whether it's in a more traditional artistic sense or in a general human created to create sense.
Right.
So what kind of impact do you try to have, Andrew, specifically for you?
So with my art and the things that I do, like I said previously, I'll harp on it again, but not too long. I try and encourage people to do similarly if they feel so. So like I'm out here, I'm expressing myself through my comics and through my podcast and through the TV work that I do. And I want others to see that and be like, if this is something I want to do, then I should do it as well. You know, I want to inspire other people to become artists, other people to become creative in their expression, if that is something that God has given them in their heart to do. And, you know, I feel like there is a lot of voices now in the world because the internet's a thing and YouTube is a thing. So more and more creating content is becoming something that's mainstream. And, you know, here we are like making our own podcast. And I just want to say that like your voice is valuable and that you should be able to be creative and make stuff and be happy and share and just see art as a really positive thing.
And, Andrew, we just interviewed you a couple hours ago. So I think what's really important to point out is that you had really key moments where people believed in you. And they saw your gifting. Yeah. They called it out. And so it's no wonder then that you want to do that for other people.
Dude, it's the most important thing, man, is just to inspire others. Like, you may not change the world singularly on your own when this lifetime is over, but you might have inspired the mind that does so. Yeah. I think just that possibility is so beautiful, Yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Chuck?
Impact.
Yeah.
Is a question, what type of impact do I
want to have personally?
For me, it's okay. And I know, guys, I don't really release a lot of stuff. I'm working on it. Okay. Snap. I'm working on it. I'm releasing some stuff soon. But the kind of impact that I want to have is, to be honest, I just want you to feel something. Yeah. Whatever it is. Just whatever emotion the art that I create brings about in you. I just want you to feel something, and that's it. I just want you to feel something.
Cool.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, I just want to create change.
That's awesome.
The most aggrandized way I can say it is release destiny.
That's pretty dope.
But
preacher.
That's a good way to put it.
I just think that, again, for me, like, just the realm of possibilities is something that needs to be cracked. I feel so many people think small-mindedly, and my challenge is always to think bigger thoughts. Right. Think bigger thoughts about God, think bigger thoughts about my life, and then to act accordingly. Right. Like, don't just be a dreamer, be a doer. But if my doing is not informed by my dream, where am I going to go? Right? How far am I going to go? So if I'm just dreaming about going down to the end of the block, I'll make it. Yeah. But what if I want to go in a hot air balloon around the world?
Nice.
Right? So if I can just enlarge in my dream and figure out how, then I'll go. So I feel like I'm trying to multiply impact that I'm one. I love this idea that you brought up, Andrea. It's actually one of my pet ideas, things that it's really driven me, is the one or the individual in the perspective of the group. Or there's one atom in this sofa, but this sofa is a sofa. Yeah. Right? There's one grain of sand. You can pick that out. You can see it. There's one day you have in the course of a lifetime, but the whole is composed of miniature things. So if we're going to try and change the world to be a better place, it's going to take me on a daily level, on an individual choice level, to decide to pursue purpose in everything that I do to have an impact. Yeah. And so it's going to take thousands and hundreds and millions of us to do that, to change the world to be a better place, to live according to our creative purpose.
Reminds me of The Alchemist. Yeah, but you probably read it.
I haven't read it. No,
never.
It's on the list. Yeah.
It's
on our recommended reading. By the way,
best books I ever read.
Shameless plug. By the way, go on thewildway.com. We have a resources tab. All these books and stuff that we mentioned. The Alchemist is there. Check them out if you were looking for more stuff to read. So go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, one of the lines in the book says, "Change yourself, and the world around you will respond."
Yeah, that's cheesy though.
Is it cheesy?
It's. I know it's what I just said. It's what I just said.
Yeah,
and it's cheesy.
But why is it cheesy?
Because most people don't have vision. They just they have this lame version of self-actualization. Like, I'm just going to be my best self. But it's self-focused, right? I think that's why I was talking about earlier.
No, that's impact. Change yourself and the world around you will respond. That's impact.
No, because it could be interpreted as force myself on the world and the world will respond.
No, that's not how I interpret it. So
well, yeah,
what does that say about you that you got that idea?
No, we're three people that are trying to create positive change.
Yeah.
But if you're just some selfish person out here, some Joe Schmo, or somebody, no, the world's got to adjust to me. No, the world doesn't care about you. It actually doesn't. The sooner you embrace that fact, the better your life will be. So you can create beautiful things, and then people will respond to that. But, bro, I mean, the world is a cruel place.
Yeah, I think a quote that's very similar to that that's always sat with me was a lot of people seek to change the world, and yet they've never tried to change themselves.
Yes.
Which I think is instrumental, because there's so many people that are like, I want to change the world, and it's like, but you haven't even addressed the problems in your own life. And I think that's important.
That's a sticker out in the back of my phone. Change starts with me. Let's go.
Change starts with
Michael Jackson.
Look at the man in the mirror.
If only you could sing like that. But,
MJ.
I think that's important because, and Andrew, this is something that, again, came up in our conversation earlier, was about skill. So how can I offer something great to the world unless I am great? You know, of course, there's levels, and we have to release things. We have to get things out there before they're perfect for all of our perfectionists out there.
Yeah.
But we have been given talents and interests and passions that is our obligation to sharpen that sword. And so there's lots of people out there that are releasing things and putting things out there, but they haven't put in the work to get good at it.
Yeah.
They have no skill to go with their talent. And so I think that's, for a lot of things, is the morality, the intention behind it, and the actual skill and the execution of it. I mean, you're going to watch our podcast, and we're going to get better as we do it.
Right.
So shamelessly, you know, we put out episode 1 knowing that episode 10 is going to be better than episode 1.
Yeah.
So we got to kind of embrace that.
I'm not sure if you've ever seen the movie Tron Legacy.
Yes.
But
Is that the second
Yeah, that was good. I like
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, there's a really great scene where the creator of Tron is talking to the program that he created, and he's lamenting his decision to make a perfect system. And he goes, "That's the thing about perfection." Great line. He goes, "That's the thing about perfection. It's all around us everywhere. We can see it every day, but it's unobtainable." So that's, I think, what you need to realize as an artist is like, yeah, you should try really hard and try and make your art really good, but understand that it'll never be perfect and be okay with that, you know?
Yeah.
The only perfect artist is God. And you will always have something that's flawed in some small way. But don't let that hinder you from putting it out into the world, you know? Try your best. That's all I got to say.
Or the perfect optimist inside of you could say, there's always room for improvement.
Oh, yeah, man. That's a way better way to frame it. Yeah. Than saying you always have flawed
You
work.
will always suck.
See, that's why you work with
Yeah,
with students, man. That's good. That's good. I should have phrased it like that. That's awesome.
I just know Charles is never going to release another song if we left it at that.
Oh man.
Oh,
Very
man.
good.
Well, cool. I think we're all trying to impact the world to be a better place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to relentlessly pursue purpose for, is if we're not relentlessly putting purpose above self-expression as an ultimate good, then we won't be providing something excellent for somebody else.
Right.
Because our purpose is always going to be in service and in love. It's really what it comes down to. Love for God, who has created us, and so we create in his image, and love for my neighbor. So if I don't have my neighbor somewhat in mind, then it's just going to be a selfish pursuit, and that's not purpose. That's just self-aggrandizement.
Yeah.
So
And it does, it doesn't always have to be so noble. Like it can be something that's just fun. You know, like I remember who's the artist that is famous for the Campbell's chicken noodles, the Campbell's soup. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Warhol. Yeah, he has that room where I think it's like there's an art piece that he made called Clouds, and it's just a room with a bunch of silver balloons in it. It's like, that's fun. Like somebody went in there and they're looking at the reflection like, well, this is really cool. Like it doesn't have to be something noble where it's like, I'm going to change your perspective on the government. Like, like I made a cool room with like reflective clouds
Art
in it.
for
Like,
art's sake.
Yeah, go take pictures with your friends and have a good time. So yeah, you should always be thinking of your neighbor in some aspect for sure.
Yeah, it can be whimsical.
I don't know how I blanked on Warhol and call myself an artist. So he's just not an artist. I watch.
Taking
a
your
lot,
card.
Yeah.
Your card.
Here you go.
Who was the great illustrator that lived around here?
I know some great illustrators that currently live around here.
Like no, like the OG illustrator, like Brandywine
idea.
area.
He did.
Wasn't it Warhol or I don't know, something like that.
He's an
Warhol from New
illustrator.
York?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
I mean, not Andy Warhol, but somebody old. He like wrote the picture books and stuff. So.
he did the book of poetry where like the tree is leaning down and handing an apple to a child. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what book you're talking about.
Yeah,
I forget what it's
he was
called.
the author that did that. He lived around here.
Yeah, but he had like a couple of like kids and stuff.
Sorry, I blanked on his name.
Yeah, I've been there, so I've seen it. I was thinking that. Cool. Now, hot take, and I know we're going to disagree on this one, so I'm really excited about it.
Sure.
So we got through our 3 eyes, but I want to kind of end this conversation with: is there such a thing as bad art?
Yeah. Go, Charles. Hit it.
I want to say yes and no for different reasons. I want to say, at least for myself, when I look at something that, like how you were just saying, the skill didn't match the talent or the gift or whatever. In myself, I want to say that it was bad just because it's not all that it could have been. But on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know why this thought came to my head, but they have a saying in media: all press is good press, even if it's bad.
Yeah.
So for art, I mean, did it make you feel something? Then it's probably good.
What if it made you feel like throwing up?
Then it's probably good because you're. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. What you think, Andrew?
It depends, like I said, the intention. So I gave the example of how in horror movies there'll be there'll be a drawing that the kid uses to show their imaginary friend that's been haunting the viewer the whole time. And that drawing was made by an adult, and the adult intentionally made it to look bad. So to me, it comes down to intention, right? You could be watching a movie, and in the movie, there's a character that's really bad at singing. And so they play a song for everybody, and it's like a really bad song. Somebody made that bad song for the movie, so their intention was for it to be bad to demonstrate a bigger picture. So yeah, skill to me is a big play in what makes good art. You should come with the skill. If you don't come with the skill, then that intentional lack of skill should be showing something for me to consider it to be good art. I know that sounds like a very like
it makes complete sense.
That makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
It's all
context is king, right?
Context is king. Exactly what I said. I could have summed it up just by saying context. It's all about what you're trying to convey. More importantly, how you're trying to convey it, what medium you're using, and how you're trying to do it.
Okay. So here's the hot take from the fine arts guy.
Go for it.
Okay. I totally disagree because, I agree with what you said, but I think there's other layers to it. So if we are created to create in the image of God, then that means there's something sacred about what we create, our intentions, our context.
Yes.
Even in the midst of a broken, fallen world, and we talk about that brokenness and fallenness. So I think that there is such a line that can be crossed that where something becomes profane, right? So, and we talked a little bit off mic about someone like Michelangelo carving David. And so what's the difference between David being naked and pornography? Right? So one is sacred, the other is profane. And the quote that goes with David, I forget who it, or not, Michelangelo, he comes to his mentor and he says, I want to carve this. And his mentor says, like, well, why are they naked? And he says, because I want to see man as God sees man. And then his mentor says back to him, just forget that you're not God.
Don't forget
that you're not God. So I think that when we lose the perspective that God has about what is beautiful, what is good, and what is true, then we quickly can slide into profane art. And I know that that's kind of a grayish zone, depending on context, right? In one context, something can be profane. In other contexts, it can be telling a story of redemption. And it can get incredibly dark, right? You just read the Bible, incredibly dark. Some of the stuff that you couldn't put on TV to this day, stuff that would make Game of Thrones blush. But it's in the context of redemptive history because it's telling the story of a great God in the midst of depravity. So,
again, context, the whole framing of that. So it's like pornography, the intention of that is to get you to submit to a very primal physical desire, whereas artistic nudity is to have you look at what's being depicted in front of you and see it as an actual work of art.
Like the body as a work of art.
100%, man. And, in our society, I think that we see women's naked bodies as more artistically, aesthetically pleasing than they'd see a man's.
For sure.
If you go to
God he made women way more beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. If you
no doubt about that.
If you go to Europe, you see a lot of that, and so like it's kind of more commonplace, I'd say, in Europe and countries that share that same artistic aesthetic. Here in the West, we definitely have a different view of it. So it also has to do with just like where you come from in a cultural place. I grew up with a lot of that. Like nude art and Renaissance era art. So I never saw it as something particularly offensive, where I could totally see somebody else seeing that as offensive. And there's a context for it. Like I got in trouble as a kid because I drew naked people when I was in kindergarten, but I was too young. I was too young to know the difference between, and so.
Hold on, I just have to laugh at that.
Yeah, man. I'm very open. Like
you were in kindergarten. Were you like in school or in class or something?
I was in class, and I was just drawing that because it's just something I had seen before and like grown very accustomed to, and I replicated.
I'm just picturing the teacher's mind.
Oh, the teacher saw it and was like, "What's going on in this guy's house?" And like they called my parents and stuff like that. And so it also, I say all that, it's a very funny story, but it really just comes down to what you're accustomed to as well, like what you see. A lot of things that we culturally see as normal, other cultures won't see as normal.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying with the whole, you can't lose God's perspective on it. Like, I don't think I was drawing anything with malicious intent. It was just actual curiosity. And you got to be careful not to demonize people that are coming from that angle too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. But don't forget, like Satan was an angel who was in charge of music.
Yeah, classic.
Right?
Classic.
So there's definitely a way to pervert art in ways that is what, more or less sending a negative message. This is the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
The dark message, increase the amount of darkness. Or, if some people would say demonic. That's probably the strongest way you could put it. So, there is that struggle between beauty and ugly or evil or profane. So, and I think a lot of art depicts that struggle.
Yeah.
Right? Expresses the struggle that we have inside between our own soul. So, anyway.
Yeah. No, but I did that.
What?
You're perv.
I did that. Yeah. It was at a Catholic kindergarten too.
So nut is bugging.
But yeah, I mean, Charles, to speak to what Billy just said about how Satan himself was a minister of music, like that's definitely something that you could speak to probably more than me, like how music can be used, with some really crazy stuff.
Bro, I'm sure you've all heard the stories. I won't mention the band name, but not apparently, there are a lot of people who like put backward messages in music. Like a lot of, it's funny. I think it was like a pastor said this, but it was like, if the enemy wants to get you to do something and you not be aware, he'll just put it in music, because you'll sing these words over yourself. Like you'll do all this and not know that you're cursing yourself with your own words. Like it's an extremely powerful thing, music, that in our world it's just like, oh, it's just music. Like at least in today's world, people drop music at like the drop of a hat. So it's everywhere, but it's an extremely powerful, sacred thing. Like it's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Music is a huge just mood controller.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so crazy about it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like music, you can put on music and just feel very instantly. Like you can put on music, like angry music, and feel angry. It's amazing.
Right. And
like
you
how
weren't
that
before.
works.
It's like, where did this come from?
It's amazing how that works, man.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful.
Never mind. Yeah.
No, what were you about to say?
He's about to start quoting Cardi B, I think.
You can't mess with me.
You want to party with Cardi?
Hey, Lil, you can't with me.
Case in point, right? Like, not to sound like Puritans, but we should be mindful of like the messages that we take in.
That's where I was about to go.
What we esteem, we will become like. What you worship, you imitate.
About to say, growing up, I used to listen to a lot of pervy music, and I had to stop at a certain point because I'm like, why am I
a pervert?
Such a pervert?
Well, man, think
all this music.
Think of yourself as an army, man. I like to think about how like ancient armies, one of the positions in the army was to be like the drummer.
Yes.
Like, how crazy is that, bro? That like there used to be armies that had a musical aspect to it, and if that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what is. So like, what beat are you marching to, man? Like you got to check that out sometimes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ugh, that'll sting. What beat are you marching to? Jinx.
Yeah, so I mean,
Punch buggy.
totally, man. Just look at how things are affecting you.
Yeah. I think what we consider beautiful, we will be drawn to like a moth to a flame. So that for us now, it's like content, really. Because we're not thinking so much as fine art. We're not going to, our museums are closed. So it's like what I view on Instagram, what songs I listen to, what TV shows I watch. Those all have moral messages encoded in them because there was a worldview that created them. And so I am ingesting, like to come back to our identity piece, that identity is being rubbed off on. And if I'm not even conscious of it, then of course I'm just going to take it into myself wholesale.
Yeah.
And even if I am conscious of it, it can still really, really rub off on you. And so I think that's just, that's again, probably not the most popular perspective of art, but I think there's very, very clearly, like some art is just, it's just whack. It's just not, it's not what it's about. It's like not God's intention. It's not going to glorify good, beautiful, or true things.
It's a perverted use of art.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And what's even crazier is that we're in probably the most content-soaked time
without
in
a doubt.
all of history.
Yeah.
Like it's almost hard to get away from at this point if you have a cell phone.
Yeah.
So like you really do have to watch like, man, how much am I being exposed to?
Yeah.
It's because it's a lot, man. It's a lot. Everything's on demand now and in your face and lightning fast, and you can get songs whenever you want. Like think about it. The whole reason that podcasting is a thing is because you can multitask entertainment. I can clean my room and, like I said before, learn about fishing in the Pacific at the same time. It's like never before in history was that considered to be something that you would indulge in regularly. So now we have content blasting at us from all sides. So I'm saying two things. It is good to create, and everybody should create, but man, just be careful of your intake, dude. You got to be careful. Yeah.
You got something to say?
Nah,
I was gonna say, man, we got to land this plane. That was a pretty good spot to land it. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, Honey Drew Boo, that's our nickname for you, man. We just appreciate you coming on here. We got too many Andrews. Not too many. You can never have too many Andrews, but we got a lot of Andrews around, so we had to delineate. And somehow we ended up with Honey Drew Boo.
It's a biblical name, man. What can I say?
That's your stage name.
All right,
Oh no, that's wrong. We take that back.
Stage name. Honey Drew Boo.
Oh man. Well, bro, thanks for coming out, for joining us today
you, man.
on the Wild Way.
Appreciate you guys,
and
man.
Andrew, if people want to link with you, where can they find you?
Hey, you can just, for my art, go to Arcangeli Design on Instagram. That's ARCANGELI. Podcast app, it's the Andrew Cast, and for my comic, it's The Ribbon by Andrew Arcangeli. Just Google it, you'll see it. Thank you so much, man.
That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Well, Charles, close us out, man.
My mind was somewhere else.
I could tell.
We really are
better together. We're not better together. I can't wait to get rid of you. But we should go.
Whoa.
Be wild.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Wild Way Podcast. If you liked it, make sure you like it, share it, subscribe, and drop a comment below.